Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Usually I'm a man of few words, but since this is an unusual occasion, I'm going to speak a bit. And I'm going to ask you to listen because I think what I'm going to say is important. First, Reverend Jackson, thank you for inviting us to Dr. King's workshop. It is a supreme honor to be here. I applaud you for the love you have shown our people and all of humanity. You see, many people have started off well, only to be diverted by the temptation of power and of privilege. Reverend Jackson could have taken an easier path than he has. Instead, you have remained steadfast in hewing the road of social justice and human dignity. On behalf of so many people, I thank you. And to tell you the truth, my mother told me to tell you this or else I cannot go home. To my co-author and brother, Asiwaju, it was a pleasure to work with you on this book. Your intellect is as strong as your political skills. More importantly, your devotion to the people shines through in everything you do. You are indeed a champion of democratic good governance. Prof. Shoyinka, you cannot hide. You are an inspiration and we're proud of you. There's nothing else I can say. Ambassador Sheila, I have followed you for many years. You have been a mentor, a friend, a brother. I love you. Thank you. My dear governors, Benny. Governor, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, and in the spirit of this occasion, in the spirit of this house, which is a house of love, a house of faith, and a house of truth, let me just say, brothers and sisters, thank you. Now, when the global recession erupted, my brother and I, we looked at both Africa and Black America, and unfortunately what we saw were two bleak houses in need of repair. In the 19th century, Europeans gathered in Berlin and carved up Africa. You had no voice. In the 20th century, two superpowers came and carved up Africa. Guess what? You had no voice. The 21st century is here. People from the East and the West want to come and gobble your resources and dump finished goods on you that you will work hard and become poor as you work harder. That's not what we want. That's not what we need. At the same time, we saw Black America that was being pulled back by economic forces it did not fully understand. We decided to write about both. The Asiwaju has concentrated on the Nigerian aspect of the world. Thus, I will focus on our analysis of the American political economy. Black America faces its stiffest challenge in a half a century. The 2008 recession has shown how far we have fallen economically. If you look at our mushrooming poverty rate, our worsening income inequality, the dissipation of family wealth and assets, and a high unemployment rate amongst Black people, the figures, the numbers are reminiscent of the Great Depression of the 1930s. In effect, Black America lives in a depression. And this depression is not one that you can simply wait out. This depression is inherent in the present ordering of the economy. Black Americans cannot simply expect to put your head down, go to sleep, hoping to wake up and find that this depression is gone. If we slump into this passivity, the only thing we will discover that it will be harder to lift up our head again because a much heavier and urgent poverty would have descended upon us. Over the last 30 years, the American economy has been recast in a manner that the harder you work, the poorer you get. We have been placed on the wrong side of an uneven exchange. Now, this is the work of the practitioners of financialism, whose inordinate love of profit has meant for us an intimate relationship with poverty. Now, sadly, the financial elites designed to further immiserate us has accelerated with the election of a certain person as president. Instead of viewing President Obama's tenancy in the White House as a benign leap in the evolution of the American political economy, the financialists see him as a radical and alien encroachment on how they perceive American government should look. Although President Obama has treated these people nicely, almost cosseted them, despite the damage they have brought to the economy, they reject him as something alien. Thus, they talk about taking the country back as if some thief under cover of darkness has stolen it. The sad truth is, they do want to take the country back. They want to take the country back to an era that never existed, an era where they believe that everything was fine. They dream of a place where they can do and say as they please, and you have little choice but to listen and behave as they would like. Now here we come to the fulcrum of our dilemma. On social and political issues, we realize we're dealing with people who are trying to deal with us from a crooked deck. And with rigor and independent analysis, we oppose their racist worldview. Yet in economics, we too easily accept what we have been told. That we have yielded so much on this issue should trouble your minds because it actually troubles your lives. Now, the money elite appreciates this much better than we do. They appreciate that everything else is subservient to economic considerations in the long term. Control how a person thinks about the economy. That person becomes more a servant of your desires and his own interests. Now, the powerful are to blame for their malevolent economic devices. Yet we are to be blamed for... In theory, we should live in empirical reality. During the formative era of America, this nation did not employ free trade principles. Instead, America was established on a system known, quite rightly, as the American system. And in his day, another president from Illinois, President Abraham Lincoln, was the primary champion of the system. Now, this system was one of government protection and encouragement of key industries and of agriculture. Government funded much of the nation's infrastructure that would rise to become the best infrastructure in the world. This was active and purposeful government intervention in the economy for the public good. Actually, and until World War II, America was known as the most protectionist nation amongst the major nations in the world. It was only after the war, when America emerged from the war as the undisputed global power, wanting to flex its muscles, did this nation come to embrace free trade. That was because it was now to its advantage. Now, during the past 20 years, China has experienced growth rates that have never been seen before in human history. Yet China has put aside free trade liberalism to do this. You see, the free market is not inherently virtuous, nor should it be an objective. It is merely a tactic that should be used to reach our true objectives, which are broad prosperity and employment for all. When the free market serves that purpose, use it. When it does not serve that purpose, let's try something else. In other words, the economy is here to serve and benefit us, not we the economy. In reality, government must play a role in the fair ordering of an economy. If not, the economic predators quickly come to dominate the landscape. Thus, advocates of small government are among the most dangerous yet cruelly honest creatures alive. We all heard of wolves in sheep's clothing. Well, these people are wolves in wolf's clothing. And if we continue to follow their dictates, we shall be sheep in sheep's clothing. And we all know the fate of sheep when wolves are on the loose. Another myth is that there is a natural rate of unemployment. Now, the financial masters tell us this, so little action is taken to help the jobless and the lowly paid. But there is nothing inevitable about a rate of unemployment. The rate of unemployment is not a product of any scientific economic calculation. It is the byproduct of political decisions on how the economy is structured and who most should benefit from it. Let's take a look back at American history for a minute. Translated into the lexicon of the political economists, slavery was nothing but the arch-racist version of a full employment program for black people. Government made laws, spend funds, and employ personnel to effectuate this economic program. Now, if government can bankroll such a harsh employment program that paid us the wages of misery and loss of human dignity, why can't government fund a progressive program that ensures a suitable wage and human dignity for all those who are willing to put their hands and their minds to labor? It can do so. The other myth, government is like a household and shouldn't live within its means. You hear that a lot. It has to balance the budget, always. I saved this most whopping myth for the last. If government is like a household, it is like that rare household with a printing press for currency in its attic. Because of the federal government's unique position as a currency issuer, the federal government, the national government, occupies a place no other economic actor can duplicate. As long as the national government's bills are in the currency that it prints, that government never has to worry about insolvency or bankruptcy. The government's only boundary is if it prints too much money is inflation. Unlike you or I, or unlike state governments, a federal government can only go insolvent if it chooses to. Otherwise, in America, the U.S. government can always pay its dollar debts. Thus, the phrase, living within your means something vastly different for the national government than it means for a mere mortal like I. For the federal government, living within your means should not refer to some numerical balance between revenue, intake, and expenditure. It should refer to the duty of government to embrace policies that move all of the nation's assets, its people, its resources,